All right, what's up everybody and welcome back to FAB Unofficial. I couldn't be more excited for this video because we finally get to talk about the new light illusionist, Prism Advent of Thrones. We've known about her for a little while now. We've had the artwork spoiled to us in the initial sort of product sheet for Dusk till Dawn, but James White himself made his way over to the Calling Singapore this past weekend and brought along with him Vincent, the new Shadow Runeblade, which I talked about in my previous video, and the girl you can see up on screen in Prism Advent of Thrones. And we finally know what she does. So this video is going to be my sort of thoughts and initial reactions, as well as talking about a couple of the cards that I'm already pretty excited to play and trial out with her. But yeah, let's dive in. So Prism Advent of Thrones reads, whenever a card with Herald in its name is put into Prism's Soul during an action phase, you may search your deck for a Figment, put it into the arena, then shuffle. So straight off the bat, it's like, what the hell is a Figment? But I think I have a good idea. But her second ability is once per turn instant. So already important there. It is an instant. It's always pretty important with the play patterns that Prism seems to have. But you can pay 2 resources to banish a card from Prism's Soul to awaken target Figment you control. So right off the bat, it's like, what the hell is a Figment? But I have heard a few other people talking about it, and I have pretty similar thoughts. I'm pretty confident Figments are going to be very similar to the Dusk cards that Dromai has. So obviously Dromai as a hero makes Ash, which are tokens that you use to create dragons and summon dragons. But she has the specific Dusk cards which line up with certain dragons, and I expect that that's what Figments will be. Figments will be cards that go into your deck that line up with a specific angel ally, which you're able to tutor up. So you'll have the option when a Herald goes to Soul, whichever angel ally you think is best suited for the situation you find yourself in. And then with her second ability, you can awaken said angel. And as a matter of fact, we already have one, which was again spoiled on the product sheet for Dusk till Dawn, which I'll bring up. That is Bologna, Archangel of War. Now, has a ton of abilities, which I'm not going to get into, but clearly a light angel ally. And I'm pretty sure that the whole ally theme is the way that LSS want to take the Illusionist class, specifically the Light Illusionist class and Prism, and move her away from the Spectra auras, which have, had their issues and complaints. But I expect that Bologna is one of a few angel allies that we're going to get in Dusk till Dawn, and we actually know that this card face is the back of a card, because when I downloaded this image on February, the title for the image specifically says it's the back, but I expect the front to be something along the lines of Bologna Figment, with Prism's ability, you can tutor up the Figment side, and then with the second ability, you can awaken her into the Archangel of War. And I also think this is why Prism's starting on significantly lower life. So 16 for the young hero, and I'm going to assume 32 life for the adult hero. And that is because I expect every angel ally to have a ward, probably 4, but maybe it varies depending on the angels. And obviously ward and the damage prevention that gives you is going to help make up for that gap in life total. But yeah, that's what I'm expecting Figments are. But quickly, so going back to Prism, the other thing I want to highlight here, which I am so pleased about, is the fact that it specifically says Heralds, right? When Heralds goes to your soul. When I was originally playing Prism, and I played her extensively before the Blue Auras came out, it was much more of a hybrid deck. You were setting up these turns where you'd want to attack with a Herald and then hopefully trigger one of your equipment pieces, which allowed you to 1-card pitch into a yellow aura, or you double Herald attack and build up Soul so you could try and go the Spectral Shield route. And there was a lot of gameplay around that, and I also felt that the deck building was much more interesting because there is no shortage of heralds available to you. So the choice on which ones you played was also really interesting, although there are a few that are pretty much staples. I really like that they're putting a focus on this, and I do like the fact that they're moving away from it seems that they're moving away from the whole Spectra aura idea of Prism, especially since I think that's also why it starts with lower life. When they move in this way, the yellow auras don't block and the blue auras block too. So when you start at such low life totals and your whole game plan is to play a bunch of auras, like, you're just not going to survive against a hero like Lexi. They're going to run you over before you can establish the board state to try and sort of take over. And you're not really going to have anything you can do about it because none of your cards block well. So I think they've found a really good balance here, and I'm super, super excited. We should also talk about the new Luminaris, which Prism's new weapon. Now, I think this is probably the only Illusionist weapon we see in this set. I don't see any reason for them to give us another one. But this is Luminaris Celestial Fury, which reads once per turn instant. You can pay 2 and then target Angel attack or attack action card with Herald in its name gets go again. So again, plays into pretty much the same themes as the hero. I really, really like it. There's a focus on the Angel Ally theme, which I think is where they want to move Prism to, and then also specific to the Heralds. So yeah, I think this combination is really, really good. I do want to note that both Prism and Luminaris, the on-hero abilities, do cost 2 resources each, which does seem like a lot. But I do think there's some deck building considerations that mean that this new Prism deck is going to look very different to the old one. Namely, the old Luminaris really cared about yellow pitch cards, and as most people will be aware, yellow pitch cards are strictly worse than blue pitch cards if their purpose is to be pitched, because you just get one less resource from them. So a lot of the play patterns in the old Prism deck had you pitching yellow cards, whereas this one, I expect you to be able to play a lot more blue pitch cards. So there's less of an issue there, if you would. I also think 2 blue pitch cards play really well into Luminaris and giving go again to a Herald. For instance, if you pitch a blue to attack with a Herald, you can then pitch another blue to give it go again, and you have 2 resources floating to come in with a second Herald attack. Or for instance, if you attack with a Herald by pitching a blue pitch card, you also have the option to pitch a second blue to then respond and play a 4-cost light aura. So sort of create some interesting play patterns, and your opponent has to respect the decisions available to you. So 2 resources for both Prism and the new Luminaris is pretty hefty, but I think it's going to be okay, and I'm pretty happy with the balance that they've struck here, so I'm not too worried. On that note, talking about the new focus on blue pitch cards, I do quickly want to talk about Arclight Sentinel. So not a super interesting card, because if anybody knows Prism, they know this card. Really, really powerful spectral aura that forces your opponent's hand as they have to attack the Arclight Sentinel, and then they lose go again, can't get the action point, and their turn just sort of ends. Always been a powerful card, but in the old build, because you were playing a lot more yellow pitch cards, the 6 cost became interesting. It was a lot less consistent, but in the new build, I expect Arclight Sentinel to be even better than it was before. So expect these Arclight Sentinel to be running around your tabletops pretty soon. I think it's also a great counter to this new, or I shouldn't say new, this Lexi deck that's been dominating CC for a little while. Like, just imagine sort of the play patterns that the Lexi deck has, where it's like Rain Razors into a 3 of a kind to set up this huge turn. You just, as a Prism player, you sort of shrug and say okay and respond to the 3 of a kind with an Arclight Sentinel, right? You've eaten up 2 of their power cards and their turn ends, and you can just continue from there. So I think Arclight Sentinel is definitely going to be running around. But that's not the card I want to talk about the most. there is one card that I'm super excited for. I played it all the time back in the day, and I think it's going to be really, really good now, and that is Tome of Divinity. Now, you guys will know I have a bit of an affinity for tomes. I like drawing cards, and I really love the flavor, and I think they're quite cool, but this one in particular is really, really good. So Tome of Divinity reads, draw 2 cards, and then if a card has been put into your hero's soul this turn, instead draw 3 cards. So the restriction on this is that it costs 4, and that it's an instant, so it doesn't block. But you don't really want to block with it too much because it is one of your power cards. So the 4 cost normally would mean that it is more than a 1-card pitch to play it. But with an equipment that I think goes hand in hand in the name of Vestige of Soul, you can actually set up where if a card's gone to Soul and you have Vestige of Soul, then whenever you pitch a blue light card, you actually make 4 resources, which means Tome of Divinity becomes a 2 card for 3. So you just get to pitch 1 card, play Tome of Divinity. It doesn't use your action point up because it's an instant, and then you draw 3 cards. So back when we were playing this, there was the concept of setting up for bigger turns, namely had Chain floating about pre-banning, so it was Seeds of Agony and setting up Rift Binds. But I think more and more the play patterns in FAB have sort of expanded, and even at your Armory events, you're seeing players pitch stack and set up huge turns. Now, Tome of Divinity and Vestige of Soul offers this to Prism without even seeing any spoilers or any cards for Dusk Till Dawn, right? Like, you're able to pitch stack multiple tomes, and even previously when I was playing Prism, it wasn't uncommon to set up a turn where you could double or triple Tome of Divinity and then just unload a huge slew of auras or herald attacks on your opponent. Now, the way that plays out is going to look a little different, I think, just because of the type of cards that you're playing. But I do think it's going to be a really, really cool, fun, powerful combination that could see a lot of play in the new Prism build. And sort of tied into this is when I always used to play this combination of cards, the headpiece of choice was Halo of Illumination. So Halo of Illumination is a light equipment, which was always good because it sort of offered you the opportunity to play Spell Void 2, which is at the very least is a great sideboard option. But the ability of at instant speed paying 1 to destroy it and put a card from your hand into your hero's soul, and then if it's a light card, you draw a card. So there's a ton of stuff going on here, especially with the new Prism, but I think Halo of Illumination could be pretty good. So we obviously talked about Vestige of Soul. With Halo of Illumination, you didn't have to rely on your heralds hitting, or like say a Merciful Retribution trigger going off to put a card in Soul. You were able on your terms to crack Halo, put a card in Soul, and turn on your Vestige, which meant that Tome of Divinity setup was, pretty consistent. But with the new Prism, I think Halo of Illumination gets even better. So this just says if it's a light card, you draw, right? Now, if that light card also happens to be a Herald, then you're going to be able to tutor up a Figment and put it in the arena. So Halo of Illumination costs 1 resource, Prism's ability costs 2. So quite consistently, I think you're going to be able to pitch a blue, activate Halo, put a Herald into your soul, tutor up a Figment, and then with the 2 floating, you can use Prism's ability to remove the same card that you just put there and awaken the Figment you just tutored up. So there is already a lot of play going on here. And this is just with the card pool that we already have from Monarch. So really, really, really strong. But yeah, that's one card that I'm super excited for. I also wanted to touch on, because it is some of the comments that I've sort of seen already is, again, around the weapon, and the fact that it's a once per turn instant, is that you can only give a Herald attack go again once. There's no other way around that, but that's not particularly true. So there's a few cards that are going to allow you to gain go again or gain action points, which I just want to point out. So obviously the obvious one is Phantasmal Footsteps, right? So Phantasmal Footsteps is a mainstay. I won't read the body of text on it, but effectively if a Herald is popped through Phantasm, you can pay 1 resource and you gain 1 action point. So it's not actually go again, but if your opponent blocks with a 6 and pops your Herald, you don't actually even have to activate the Luminaris, right? You attack with the Herald, they choose to block with the 6, you say, okay, Phantasm triggers, and then you can pay a resource to Phantasmal Footsteps to gain the resource back, or to gain the action point back, should I say. So you put your opponent in, again, another tricky situation where it's 2 onboard abilities and they have to make the decision that's best for them. But whether they don't block with a 6, you have the option to gain go again through Luminaris. And if they do block with a 6, you're going to have the option to gain a resource point back with Phantasmal Footsteps. So, yeah, really, really cool. And then a aura, which people will have seen again, it's Ode to Wrath. Now, this is a 4-cost Light Illusionist aura from Monarch. And the line the 2 lines of text that meant the most in the previous Prism builds was when, obviously, Spectra, but then whenever a source you control deals damage to an opposing hero, they lose 1 life. So that was sort of the way you could snowball and start dealing a ton of damage, because each Spectral Shield or each aura that attacked for 1 actually dealt an additional 1. But the line of text, which was often ignored, that I think becomes super, super relevant with the new Prism, is that Illusionist attack action cards you control have go again. So it's irrelevant of the pitch. It just doesn't matter. So if you get to play an Ode to Wrath and have it survive through to your turn, then any Heralds you're able to play naturally have go again regardless. So you don't have to pay the 2 resources for Luminaris. Just every Herald attack you have has go again. You can pitch a blue for it. You can pitch a red for it. Doesn't matter. So again, I'm loving the fact that there's a ton of questions you're having to answer with the deck building and a ton of options. I'm super, super excited. Yeah, I cannot wait to start seeing the card pool that Dusk Till Dawn gives us and sort of dive into brewing new decks with Prism Advent of Thrones. But that's a few of the cards that I'm thinking about already, and I think LSS, same with Vincent, they have done an amazing job of sort of balancing the flavor and how she feels. At current, obviously we don't have tons of info, but the way that I'm expecting Figments and Awakening them and Angel Allies and tying it in with the Heralds themselves, the way I'm expecting that to play out, yeah, I think Prism was pretty popular before, and I expect her to be even more popular come the release of Dusk Till Dawn. So again, you better come up with an answer for Spectra, because even if people aren't playing any of the others, you will be seeing some Arclight Sentinels back around the tabletops. So yeah, they're my thoughts. If you guys have any ideas or thoughts on cards that you're looking forward to playing with Prism, I'm really keen to hear about it. I love talking about FAB, so hit me up in the comments, or you can message me on Facebook. I'm part of the Flesh and Blood fan page, so you can reach out to me there. But yeah, let me know what you think.